This is a story that Martin Luther King Jr. doesn't want you to know about. On June 6, 1966, the second day of the March Against Fear, a man named James Meredith crossed the Mississippi border only to fall victim to an ambush. James Meredith was an already established notable figure. As a veteran Air Force pilot, he made history by becoming the first black man to be admitted to the University of Mississippi in 1962. He was denied twice, but later wrote in his application, "Nobody handpicked me. I believed, and believe now, that I have a divine responsibility. I am familiar with the probable difficulties involved in such a move as I am undertaking, and I am fully prepared to pursue it all the way to a degree from the University of Mississippi." Meredith wanted admission for his country, race, family, and himself. Initially accepted the third time around, his admission was later revoked upon the discovery of his race. However, the U.S. court intervened and ruled that the university had unlawfully discriminated against Meredith, thereby granting him access to the institution. On his first day at the university, Meredith was accompanied by law enforcement officers due to the high threat level posed by racist individuals in the area. Later, after State Senator George Yarborough withdrew the state police, a riot broke out. Whites opposing integration had begun gathering at the campus and began fighting with federal agents. Despite the Kennedy administration's reluctance to use force, it ordered the nationalized Mississippi National Guard and federal troops to the campus. In the violent clashes which followed, 2 civilians were killed by gunshot wounds, and rioters burned cars, pelted federal agents and soldiers with rocks, bricks, and even small arms fire, and damaged university property. In 1966, Meredith orchestrated a march known as the March Against Fear, in which he initially stood as a sole participant. Spanning an impressive distance of 220 miles, the march aimed to shed light on racism and encourage African Americans to exercise their right to vote for politicians supporting their civil rights in the upcoming elections. In this iconic photograph captured during the March Against Fear, civil rights activist James Meredith endured a heinous act of violence. He was shot in the head, back, and neck by an unidentified sniper who ambushed him while leading the march aimed at raising awareness about racism. It was the second day of the march, and as Meredith crossed the Mississippi River, he was fired upon from a concealed position in a wooded area. Aubrey Novell fired 3 shots at Meredith, inflicting severe injuries. Despite police and FBI surveillance, this brutal attack managed to occur in broad daylight. Fortunately, James Meredith survived the ambush. On June 26th, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and other activists, along with thousands of participants, took charge of the march and successfully completed it. Meredith, determined and resilient, managed to rejoin the marchers shortly before its conclusion, stamping themselves in history as the leaders of the civil rights movement. Throughout the march, the group faced various forms of hostility, including attacks, harassment, and threats from both civilians and law enforcement personnel. In the aftermath of the attack, Aubrey Novell was found guilty of assault. However, the punishment he received was lenient, with a mere 2-year prison sentence. This outcome sparked further discussions and debates about the need for more stringent measures against racially motivated violence. In 1967, while living and studying in New York, Meredith decided to run as a Republican against incumbent Adam Clayton Powell Jr., a multi-term Democrat, in a special election for the congressional seat in Harlem. He withdrew from the race and Powell was re-elected. Meredith said later of his campaign, "The Republican Party of New York made an offer of full support in every way. Everything. He had full access to top New York Republicans." After returning to Mississippi to live in 1972, Meredith ran for the U.S. Senate against Democratic Senator James Eastland, who had been the incumbent for 29 years in what had operated as a one-party state. Following provisions of a new state constitution of 1890 that made voter registration extremely difficult, African Americans had been effectively disenfranchised and the Republican Party had been crippled. Meredith conceded that he had little chance of winning unless Governor George Wallace of Alabama entered the presidential race and split the white vote. An active Republican, Meredith served from 1989 to 1991 as a domestic advisor on the staff of United States Senator Jesse Helms. Faced with criticism from the civil rights community for working for the avowed segregationist, Meredith said that he had applied to every member of the Senate and House offering his services, and only Helms's office responded. He also wanted a chance to do research at the Library of Congress. In 2002, officials at the University of Mississippi celebrated the 40th anniversary of Meredith's historic admission and integration of the institution with a year-long series of events. Of the celebration, Meredith said, "It was an embarrassment for me to be there, and for somebody to celebrate it? Oh my God. I want to go down in history and have a bunch of things named after me, but believe me, that ain't it." He said he had achieved his main goal at the time by getting the federal government to enforce his rights as a citizen. He saw his actions as an assault on white supremacy. In 2003, he was far more proud that his son, Joseph Meredith, graduated as the top doctoral student at the university's graduate business school. Remarkably, James Meredith is still alive today, at the age of 89, carrying with him the memories of his courageous actions and unwavering commitment to the fight for equality and justice.